Stereotypes are oversimplified generalizations about a group or class of people that often focus on the negative aspects of that group. In the music industry, there are many stereotypes about what an artist's music should sound like based on what that artist looks like, or vice versa. Common stereotypes in the music industry include that rappers are African American, R&B artists are young, hardcore music is for male artists, males with deep voices are old, and country singers are Caucasian. Our experiment addressed these stereotypes in two ways. In the first part of our investigation, we played 5 songs to students on the USC Horseshoe and asked them a series of questions about the artist's gender, age, and race. In part 2, we showed pictures of the 5 artists and asked the participants which genre they thought the artist's music was classified as.
Based on the phenomenon of stereotypes, we predicted that the participants' responses in both parts of this study would follow the stereotypes that are commonly associated with each music genre, based mostly on race, gender, and age.
Male.
Okay.
Male.
I think it's male.
Should be still male.
Yeah, I was going between black and Caucasian. I don't know. White, Caucasian.
Okay.
Like it's just beginning now. I ask you a question, I want answers, not to run around. You the one that brought it up, but I'm the one that shut it down. If you ain't got that album yet, I'll put you.
Was Asian an option?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking for this one.
Caucasian.
And white.
All right.
Black, yeah. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Can you be? Show Caucasian again.
Miles in Budapest, my hidden treasure chest. Golden grand piano, my beauty.
Male, 15 to 30. Caucasian.
All right. 15 and 30.
Is he or is he older
I
than
don't
that?
know.
Probably. I don't know that one. I feel like I should because I know the song.
Yeah.
For the results of our experiment, after survey 1, we tallied up the number of errors by category and looked at the error distribution after the participants were asked to list potential characteristics of the artist after hearing their music. So interestingly enough, we found that the category with the highest number of errors was race, with 23. Age came in second with 14 errors, and gender was last with 10 errors. Interestingly enough, for the metal genre that was played, which was the band Arch Enemy, with a female vocalist, everyone in survey 1 guessed that after hearing the music that the female vocalist was a male. And all but one person guessed that after hearing Charlie Pride's song, who's a country singer, a black country singer, that he was white. What's more, 7 out of 10 participants guessed that the St. Paul band was black after hearing their music as well. For survey 2, we were looking at artist genre association and the accuracy with which participants could match the artist's genre after looking at their photograph. And the accuracy overall was low across all 10 participants. The average accuracy was 18%, and the highest accuracy out of all 10 participants was 40%. So as we see, participants 5 and 6 guessed incorrectly for all 5 artists that were presented via photograph. What's interesting with this is that for NF, who sings rap, that no one guessed him correctly after looking at his photograph. No one guessed his genre of music correctly, and no one guessed Charlie Pride's genre of music correctly after looking at his photograph. What's more, only one person was able to correctly guess Alyssa White Gluz's genre after looking at her picture.
Studies about the neural correlates of stereotyping have found that the brain is predisposed to forming stereotypes, especially negative ones. It's helpful for the brain so that we don't get overwhelmed with new information, but can also lead to prejudice. The anterior temporal pole has been found to be most commonly used when people are acquiring prejudices. And researchers think that in the future, they may be able to identify which brains are more likely to acquire prejudice based on their neuroanatomy. Other research on the neural correlates of stereotypes have found that the neural bases are more related to social and emotional cognition than semantic knowledge. They found the regions that are most associated with social cognition were activated, including the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate, bilateral temporoparietal junction, and the anterior temporal cortex. The implications of this project are about music, but also about other judgments that we make about people. Stereotypes are present in almost all aspects of life and affect our judgment without us realizing it. Many social issues result from stereotyping, so it's important to be aware that we do this, so that we don't make damaging assumptions.
Here are our references and sources that we used to conduct baseline research for our experiment, and we would also like to acknowledge all of our participants who are out in the horseshoe who allowed us to film them and to survey them. And we would also like to acknowledge the contributors to this experiment, Leah, Hannah, Abby, and KJ.